The gaming industry has seen its fair share of post-credit sequences that a lot of players either accidentally skipped or didn't make it far enough to see. We have covered this topic before, shining a light on the likes of BioShock Infinite and Marvel's Spider-Man, which threw huge mysteries into the mix once their respective stories were seemingly over. This time around though, we've taken your suggestions on board. So, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 post-credit video game scenes you shouldn't have missed, commenter edition. Number 10. Arkham City, Only You. Rocksteady's Arkham series boasts some killer post-credit sequences, but one which stands out as a fan favourite comes at the end of the second game, Arkham City. Now this is more of an Easter egg than it is a full-on scene, but it is proof that you don't need an extravagant, expensive idea to deliver a memorable post-credit stinger. The moment in question comes after the jaw-dropping ending, which sees the Joker, aka Batman's biggest villain and arch-nemesis, dead in the Dark Knight's arms. It's a surprisingly tragic moment, and it's made even more haunting by the Joker's unexpected serenade playing over the credits. Here, the supervillain sings Only You to Batman and the player, taunting us with the lyrics, "Only you and you alone can thrill me like you do." Even better, this is considered part of the story as well, not just some weird moment for the fans. That's because the performance comes by way of a voicemail the clown prince of crime left mere hours before his death. Number 9. Nier Automata, the final bullet hell challenge. If I was being cheeky with this list, then pretty much half of Nier Automata could technically count as a post-credit scene. After all, this is a game you have to complete at least 3 times to see everything, with subsequent playthroughs making substantial changes to the narrative and often extending beyond where the previous one finished. Consequently, there are so many twists and turns that technically happen after the credits, not to mention all of the joke endings as well, which also hit you with the credits sequence. But the final proper ending features the most memorable of all these choices. Here, after finally reaching the true conclusion, you're given control again as the credits roll for one final bullet hell sequence. The twist is, this is by far the most difficult challenge in the game, and you only stand a chance when the gamer tags of other players who have finished the story themselves come in to help you out in the form of AI companions. And once you achieve victory, you discover where those helpers came from. The game reveals the people attached to those profiles sacrifice their own saved data, deleting it permanently to add their avatar to the list of companions aiding you. The player is then hit with the same final choice: do the same and help out a stranger, or just say nah and keep your save game. Number 8. Every Metal Gear Solid game, a final twist. Every Metal Gear Solid game pretty much features an excellent post-credits stinger, and it feels wrong to only mention one of them here. For the most part, these little codec calls that bookend each title leave players on a cliffhanger ending, delivering some kind of big twist that recontextualizes everything you've just experienced. For me though, the second game offers the biggest WTF revelation. After spending a full game on the hunt for the Patriots, trying to understand their motives and the world-changing events they've put into motion, the game ends with Otacon and Snake finally tracking down their identities. The twist is, the people identified as the Patriots have all been dead for years. Cue the spooky music and a cliffhanger finale that wouldn't be answered for a whole console generation. MGS4 also saves a chunk of its biggest revelations for after the close of its main story, having not only an epilogue, but also a debriefing which attempts to wrap everything up. Its true post-credit sequence though is a sweet little moment between Snake and best pal Otacon, with the two promising to spend their remaining time together. It's cute, I love it. Number 7. Dragon Age Inquisition, Solus is the main villain. I don't know what it is about post-credit scenes that invites writers to use them to suddenly reveal that an otherwise friendly character has joined the dark side, but it is a trope that's becoming increasingly common in both video games and movies. Dragon Age Inquisition is one such example. Here the player spends 100 hours hunting down a darkspawn called Corypheus, who's causing havoc all over the world with the help of a particularly powerful orb. In order to fight back, the player character seeks allies and companions to mount a resistance, one of the earliest and most powerful being the elf Solus. This being a BioWare game though, you assume that all of these companions are genuinely on your side. Between talking to them in missions and taking them out into battle with your party, it's easy to get attached, even to Solus, who is admittedly a little bit full of himself. The post-credit scene flips this on its head though, revealing this character to be a literal god of betrayal, and the one who enabled Corypheus from the get-go. He was the one who gave him the orb in the first place, in the hopes of later harnessing its power, and thus set into motion the exact thing he was helping you fight the whole game. Number 6. Detroit Become Human, Connor and Hank hug. The nature of Detroit Become Human's player-driven story means that everyone can come out of the other end with radically different conclusions. Consequently, there are a bunch of different post-credit sequences to be discovered based on the fates and decisions of each main character. While there are so many tragic ones to be found here, I mean, this is a David Cage game after all, the one we're focusing on today is actually kinda sweet. Detective android Connor's relationship with his very human detective partner Hank provided one of the most compelling dynamics in the whole story. The two can evolve and learn from each other as the game progresses, and though it takes some doing, the friction can give way to a genuinely beautiful friendship, something this post-credit scene pays off in full. If you're lucky enough to get the good ending with these two, the stinger shows them meeting back up in front of a diner before embracing in a warm hug. Truly, a friendship for the ages. Number 5. Titanfall 2. BT is still alive? Titanfall 2 tells the love story of one talented pilot and his charming robot mech. Jack Cooper is the former and BT-7274 is the latter, with the campaign of Respawn's sequel seeing the two shoot their way through a surprisingly engaging sci-fi plot. All jokes aside though, you do genuinely come to care about your robotic companion, and the devs were clearly expecting you to because they kill off BT towards the end of the game. His sacrifice allows Cooper to finish his mission and live to see another day. It all seems pretty straightforward and cut and dry come the credits, but of course there is one final tease that comes once the names have scrolled by. Here, a Morse code encrypted message arrives on Cooper's former helmet, suggesting that BT could still be alive in one form or another, with parts of his AI being tucked away somewhere on a server. With Apex Legends and Jedi Fallen Order taking up so much of Respawn's focus in the years since though, he's hoping they eventually get around to following up this cliffhanger eventually. Number 4. Horizon Zero Dawn, Silence has Hades. Horizon Zero Dawn kicked off a brand new universe for PlayStation, but its main story felt surprisingly concluded by the end. Perhaps because they had no idea whether this risky venture would work, the developers delivered an impressively self-contained story that answered most of its biggest mysteries. Of course, there was still hope that this would be a franchise, and the post-credit scene does the heavy lifting in establishing where the sequel, that being Horizon Forbidden West, will go from here. This final tease reveals that Hades, the AI responsible for the near apocalyptic events of the game, is still active. Even worse, it's now under the control of Silence, who has his own plans for the power Hades wields and intends on finding out who reactivated it in the first place. With the sequel set for this year, fans will finally be able to know exactly what Silence's true intentions are and whether or not the world of Horizon remains on the threat of extinction. Number 3. Donovan is getting revenge for JFK. Though Mafia III is very much the story of Lincoln Clay's budding criminal empire in New Bordeaux, it's all framed via side character Donovan. Clay's story is contextualized as a courtroom testimony from the former CIA operative, but the true nature of these flash-forwards isn't revealed until the post-credits sequence. Here, Donovan finally explains why he turned against his own government to help a criminal exact his highly personal revenge. And the answer, funnily enough, turns out to be that the Vietnam vet is similarly on his own quest for revenge. In a wild, wacky twist, Donovan is revealed to have actually been hunting conspirators involved in the JFK assassination, which included Lincoln's own revenge target, Sal Marcano. At this point, Donovan pulls a gun on the senator interrogating him, accusing him of also being part of this conspiracy to kill the president. In front of the other officials and television cameras, he shoots the senator dead, scratching off another name on his list. Honestly, it's ridiculous and Donovan deserves his own game. Number 2. Death Stranding, pretty much the entire plot. I've already talked about a bunch of Hideo Kojima games on this list already, but with Death Stranding, the acclaimed director slash madman absolutely took the piss. Picking up the game's complex story with a final epic confrontation between Sam and his sister, things initially look a bit downbeat. The credits slowly play with Sam stuck on a beach, with the implication being that he's going to be there alone forever as a bit of exposition plays around him. If you nipped off to make a cup of tea once you saw these credits incoming, however, you will have made a huge mistake. That's because Death Stranding still has a feature-length cutscene yet to come. This proper finale attempts to offer closure to the game's biggest characters and finally addresses just what the hell was going on with Mads Mikkelsen's Cliff. Hell, it's so extensive that Die Hardman's entire character arc is pretty much entirely confined to this final cutscene. So if you didn't stick around, you'll have no idea why he was such a prominent presence in the story previously. And just to make this even more indulgent, there's a second post-credit scene featuring Lou as well, which is admittedly a real tearjerker. Number 1. Hades, your mother finally returns. Hades is a game that has a flexible definition of the term ending. As a roguelike that encourages playing the same stages over and over again, it incorporates that infinite loop into its narrative. As you beat the same or similar bosses, the wider story plays out, but the end goal always remains the same, that being defeating your father, Hades himself, and freeing yourself from the underworld. Doing this just once isn't enough though. While you might think that beating the final boss would mark the end of the game, you actually need to beat 10 runs before seeing the title's true ending. And even then though, you can of course still continue playing even after the credits have rolled. This post-credit stretch will feature unique encounters as well, rather than just skipping back to before the climax like so many other games opt to. Now when you reach Hades at the end, instead of a bitter showdown, the father and son dynamic has softened a little bit, and the two kinda just treat it more like a bonding opportunity than anything else. So that's our list. Want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of these post-credit sequences, and are there any cool ones that I missed off here? Who knows, maybe we'll do a commenter edition or something like that. While you're down there as well, can you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.